They saw a beat-up Oldsmobile and decided they knew her story. They never imagined she'd be deciding their careers. They didn't see a person when they saw the car. They saw a conclusion. In Meridian Financial Group's executive parking garage, luxury lined the walls, polished sedans, imported SUVs, vehicles that whispered power without saying a word. And then there was the outlier. A faded turquoise Oldsmobile, old enough to be forgotten, parked where it clearly didn't belong. Linda Harrington noticed it immediately. Her heels stopped. Her eyes narrowed. And before the black woman standing beside the car could say a word, Linda pointed and smiled, the kind of smile that isn't friendly, just certain. "You can't park here," she said. "This level is for executives." The woman didn't argue. She didn't apologize. She simply listened. What Linda didn't know was that this moment, this assumption, this sentence, was already being recorded. Not on a phone. In a leather journal the woman carried everywhere. And before this parking garage encounter was over, one of them would realize she had just made the most expensive mistake of her career. The rain came down hard the day they buried Deacon Marcus Grant, as if heaven itself wept for a man who'd spent 34 years delivering mail through every kind of weather. Alicia stood at the graveside in a black dress that cost more than her father had earned in a month, feeling the weight of success and loss pressing down on her shoulders in equal measure. 2 weeks later, in the sterile conference room of Morrison and Pierce, attorneys at law, the will was read. Most of it was expected: the modest house in Northeast D.C. split between Alicia and her younger brother, the small savings account, the insurance policy. But then came the clause that made Alicia's throat tighten: "To my daughter Alicia, I leave my 1987 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, which has carried me 287,000 miles through this life. Don't you ever be ashamed of where you came from." Her brother, ever practical, offered to handle the donation. "Ollie, you just cashed out of FinTrust for 8 figures. You can buy any car you want." He meant well. Everyone meant well. Her financial advisor suggested a Tesla. Her former business partner sent her a link to a Porsche dealership. Even her realtor, upon hearing she was keeping the Oldsmobile, asked gently if she needed referrals to grief counselors. But Alicia remembered. She remembered the turquoise hood gleaming in the sun as her father picked her up from spelling bees, his proud smile visible through the windshield before she even reached the curb. She remembered graduation day at Howard, the Oldsmobile somehow finding a spot right in front despite the chaos, her father leaning against it with a bouquet of grocery store flowers and tears in his eyes. She remembered her first pitch meeting for the fintech startup that would change her life, the Oldsmobile idling outside the investor's office building, her father's text arriving just as she walked in: "They'd be fools not to bet on you." The car stayed. 3 months after the funeral, the bidding war began. FinTrust's successful exit had made Alicia one of the most sought-after tech executives under 40. Offers arrived daily, each more lucrative than the last. But it was Meridian Financial Group's pitch that caught her attention, not because of the compensation package, though it was generous, but because of CEO Patricia Keating's personal letter referencing Meridian's commitment to innovation and diversity. "We don't just want to change financial services," Keating had written. "We want to change who gets to lead that change." Alicia accepted the VP of Innovation role on a Tuesday. By Friday, she'd developed a plan. Before her official start date, before the carefully choreographed first day with its executive meet and greets and strategic positioning, she would conduct what she called a reconnaissance mission. She would visit Meridian on a weekend, when the performance ended and the real culture revealed itself. On Saturday morning, she loaded her father's leather journal, a thermos of coffee, and her new executive access card into the Oldsmobile. The odometer read 287,847 miles. She ran her hand along the dashboard, feeling the cracks in the vinyl, and smiled. "Let's see what we're walking into, Dad," she whispered, turning the key. The engine turned over with the same reliable growl it had produced for nearly 4 decades, and Alicia Grant drove toward her future in a car that refused to forget her past. The Meridian Financial Group tower rose 37 stories above downtown, its glass and steel facade reflecting the morning sun like a monument to ambition. Alicia pulled into the underground garage at 8:47 a.m., early enough to observe but late enough that the weekend cleaning crews would be in full swing. You learn who people really are when they think no one important is watching, her father used to say, and Alicia had built a career on that principle. Job interviews told you what people wanted you to believe. Weekend reconnaissance told you the truth. She bypassed the main entrance entirely, steering the Oldsmobile down the ramp marked executive parking, authorized access only. Her new key card worked flawlessly at the gate arm, granting her entry to a space she technically wouldn't officially occupy for another 48 hours. The garage spread before her like a showroom for German engineering, Mercedes, BMW, Audi, a Porsche Taycan charging silently in the corner. Row after row of vehicles that cost more than most people's homes. Space C-12 sat empty, waiting. Her assigned spot. Alicia pulled the turquoise Oldsmobile between the white lines and cut the engine. The contrast was almost comical. To her left, a black BMW 7 Series gleamed under the fluorescent lights, its paint job so perfect it looked liquid. To her right, a silver Audi Q7 sat like a piece of sculpture. And between them, her father's old car with its oxidized paint, slightly dented bumper, and dashboard crack that looked like a lightning bolt. Alicia gathered her journal and thermos, locked the doors with a key, an actual metal key, not a fob, and headed for the elevator. She had dressed deliberately, jeans, her Howard University sweatshirt, comfortable sneakers, her natural hair pulled back in a simple bun. She wanted to see how Meridian treated people who didn't immediately broadcast executive status. The elevator arrived empty. She pressed the button for the lobby, planning to walk the public spaces first, then work her way up through the building. Security desk interactions would tell her about protocol and respect. Interactions with weekend staff would reveal the company's real values, not the ones printed in the annual diversity report. As the elevator descended, Alicia opened her journal to a fresh page. At the top, she wrote, Saturday, 8:52 a.m., Reconnaissance Day 1. Below it, she added her father's favorite question, the one that had guided every major decision in her career: what are they like when they think you can't do anything about it? In less than 10 minutes, she would have her answer. The elevator doors opened onto the executive garage level, and Alicia stepped out, ready to observe the weekend culture of her new corporate home. She had learned long ago that a company's true character lived in the margins, in how security guards spoke to cleaning staff, in whether executives held doors, in the small moments when hierarchy dissolved and humanity showed through. What she didn't expect was that she herself would become the test. The executive elevator doors slid open with a whisper-quiet precision that screamed money. Linda Harrington emerged in a cloud of expensive perfume, her red power suit immaculate even on a Saturday, designer bag dangling from her elbow like a status symbol with a price tag. Her eyes swept the garage with the proprietary gaze of someone who considered this territory her own. Then she saw the Oldsmobile. Linda stopped mid-stride, her expression shifting from neutral to disgusted in less than a second. Her gaze traveled from the oxidized turquoise paint to the dented bumper to the woman standing beside it, and her face arranged itself into the particular kind of smile that wasn't a smile at all. "Excuse me," Linda called out, her heels clicking sharply as she approached. "You're in the wrong garage, sweetheart." Alicia turned slowly, her expression calm. She'd played this game before. "I don't think so. I have authorization to park here." "Authorization?" Linda's perfectly shaped eyebrows arched. "This is executive parking. Staff parking is around back, past the loading docks." She gestured vaguely toward the exit as if directing a lost child. "I'm aware of the parking structure," Alicia said evenly. "I'm parked exactly where I'm supposed to be." Linda's eyes narrowed, taking in the jeans, the sweatshirt, the casual Saturday attire. Her smile grew sharper. "Look, I understand you're probably new to the building, but this level is reserved for senior leadership." That, she pointed at the Oldsmobile with one manicured finger, doesn't belong here. And honestly, neither do you. Alicia reached into her pocket and produced her new executive access card, the one with VP of Innovation, printed clearly beneath her name. Actually, I believe it does. Linda barely glanced at it. Oh, that's cute. Where did you get that? Did you find someone's lost card? She laughed, the sound brittle and condescending. Honey, I know everyone who belongs on this level. I've worked at Meridian for 8 years. And trust me, you are not one of them. Ms. Harrington, Alicia said, reading the name off Linda's own badge, I'm showing you valid credentials. Perhaps we should. Perhaps you should stop playing games before this gets serious, Linda interrupted. I don't know what you're doing here on a Saturday, or what you think you're accomplishing with that fake ID, but you need to move this eyesore, she gestured at the Oldsmobile with disgust, and yourself out of executive parking immediately. Alicia felt the familiar weight of her father's journal in her bag. Documentation. Always document. I've shown you my credentials. I have every right to be here. Linda's expression hardened. She pulled out her phone, her fingers moving with practiced speed. We'll see about that. I'm calling security. If you won't leave voluntarily, they'll escort you out. And depending on what they find when they investigate this little performance, she waved the phone at Alicia's ID card, you might be leaving in handcuffs. That seems excessive, Alicia said quietly. Does it? Linda's voice rose, echoing off the concrete walls. Someone shows up in a car that belongs in a junkyard, claims to be an executive, refuses to leave when asked politely. That's trespassing. That's possible identity theft. That's a security threat. Alicia watched Linda's performance with clinical detachment, already categorizing it, escalation tactics, appeals to authority, weaponization of security protocols. Classic playbook for people who'd never been questioned. Security. Linda spoke into her phone, her voice shifting to crisp authority. This is Linda Harrington, Senior Marketing Executive. I'm in the executive garage, and we have a situation. There's an unauthorized person refusing to leave. Send someone immediately. She paused. Yes, immediately. And tell them she's claiming to have executive credentials. Possible stolen ID. She ended the call and turned back to Alicia with cold satisfaction. They'll be here in 2 minutes. You can explain your little story to them. Maybe they'll be more understanding than I am. Her smile suggested she hoped they wouldn't be. Though I have to warn you, we take security very seriously at Meridian. This won't end well for you. Alicia reached into her bag and withdrew her leather journal. She opened to a fresh page, noted the time, 9:07 a.m., and began writing in clear, precise handwriting. Linda Harrington, Senior Marketing Executive, refused to accept valid credentials. Called security. Direct quote. Linda watched the journal appear with visible unease. What are you doing? Documenting, Alicia said calmly, not looking up. You said this was serious. I agree. So I'm recording everything. For the first time, Linda's confidence flickered. Marcus Chen had been a security officer at Meridian Financial Group for 3 years, and in that time, he developed a reliable instinct for trouble. The call from Linda Harrington sent every one of those instincts jangling. He'd dealt with her before, twice she'd called security on delivery personnel who'd used the executive elevator, once on a new hire who'd accidentally parked in the wrong section. Each time, the situation had been minor, but Linda's response had been nuclear. He stepped off the elevator into the executive garage and immediately assessed the scene. A pearl-white Mercedes G-Class, Linda's car, he recognized it. A turquoise Oldsmobile that looked older than Marcus himself. And 2 women facing each other with the kind of tension that made his job exponentially harder. Ms. Harrington, he said, approaching with careful neutrality. What seems to be the problem? Linda pointed at Alicia like a prosecutor indicating evidence. This woman is parked in executive territory with what appears to be a stolen or fraudulent access card. She refuses to leave or identify herself properly. I want her removed from the premises immediately. Marcus turned to Alicia, his expression professional. Ma'am, may I see your identification and parking authorization? Alicia handed over her driver's license and the executive access card without hesitation. Marcus examined them carefully. The access card was legitimate, he could tell from the holographic Meridian logo, the embedded chip, the specific format used only for senior executives. The name read, Alicia Grant, VP of Innovation. The activation date was Monday, but weekend access for new executives conducting building familiarization wasn't unusual. This appears to be in order, Marcus said slowly. It's fake, Linda snapped. Obviously fake. Look at her, Marcus. Look at what she's wearing. Look at that car. Does she look like a VP to you? Marcus felt his stomach drop. He knew exactly where this was going, and he wanted no part of it. Ms. Harrington, the credentials check out in our system. I can verify. I don't care what your system says, Linda interrupted. I'm telling you, I know every executive at this company. I've never seen her before. That card is either stolen or she's pulled some kind of scam. She stepped closer to Marcus, her voice dropping to a sharp whisper that Alicia could still clearly hear. If you let her walk away and it turns out I'm right, this falls on you. Is that what you want? To be the security officer who let a criminal walk because you didn't do your job? Marcus looked at Alicia, who stood calmly watching the exchange, her leather journal open in her hands. Something about her stillness, her documentation, suggested this wasn't her first encounter with skepticism. Ma'am, he said to Alicia, hating every word, would you mind waiting here while I verify your information with our weekend supervisor? It'll just take a few minutes. Of course, Alicia said evenly. Though I'd like you to note that I've already provided valid credentials and Ms. Harrington has refused to accept them. Linda's face flushed. Don't you dare make this about me. You're the one trespassing. A few minutes, Marcus repeated, pulling out his radio. But Linda wasn't satisfied. A few minutes? She could leave in a few minutes. She could be a threat. Marcus, I'm going to be very clear, if you don't take action right now, real action, not just a phone call, I will be calling your supervisor myself. And I'll make sure he knows that you chose to believe a suspicious stranger over a senior executive with 8 years at this company. She let the threat hang in the air. Do you really want to explain that to Director Rivers? Marcus felt the walls closing in. He'd seen good officers lose their jobs over situations like this, situations where they made the wrong call, trusted the wrong person, let protocol override common sense. Linda Harrington had the kind of connections that could end careers. And he had a daughter in college, tuition bills that didn't pay themselves. Ma'am, he said to Alicia, his voice apologetic but firm, I'm going to need you to wait over by the security station while we sort this out. Please don't touch your vehicle. Alicia nodded, closed her journal, and walked calmly toward the security station near the elevator bank. Marcus noticed she was noting everything, the time, his nameplate, the positioning of the security cameras overhead. Not good enough, Linda said sharply. What if she runs? What if she destroys evidence? You need to secure the situation, Marcus. Do your job. And that's when Marcus made the decision he would regret for the rest of his career. He reached for his handcuffs. Ma'am, I need you to place your hands behind your back, he said quietly. Alicia turned, met his eyes, and saw the apology there. She saw the fear too. Without a word, she complied, her journal still clutched in one hand. As the cuffs clicked shut, she spoke in a voice that carried clearly across the garage, Officer Chen, badge number 2847, placed me in restraints at 9:14 a.m. without cause, under pressure from Linda Harrington, despite my presentation of valid executive credentials. Marcus's hands shook as he completed the restraint. He'd just made a terrible mistake. He knew it in his bones. But Linda Harrington was already on her phone again, calling someone, securing her version of events. In her cuffed hands, Alicia's journal remained open, the pen mark still wet on the page, documenting everything. Chapter 5, The Cavalry Arrives. Jamal Rivers had been head of security at Meridian Financial Group for 15 years, long enough to develop an almost supernatural ability to sense when something had gone catastrophically wrong. Marcus Chen's voice on the radio, tight, stressed, with that particular quality of a man who knows he's stepped in something he can't wipe off, triggered every alarm Jamal possessed. He arrived in the executive garage 7 minutes after the call, moving with the deceptive calm of someone who'd learned long ago that running only escalates chaos. What he saw stopped him in his tracks. Marcus Chen stood rigid beside a turquoise Oldsmobile that looked like it had been driven through 4 decades of American history. Next to him, hands cuffed behind her back with professional precision, stood a black woman in casual weekend clothes, her expression calm to the point of unsettling. And nearby, pacing like a prosecuting attorney awaiting a verdict, was Linda Harrington in a red suit that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. Jamal's eyes went to the woman in handcuffs, and something clicked. He'd seen her face recently. Very recently. In an email marked, confidential, executive onboarding. The new VP of Innovation. The woman CEO Patricia Keating had personally recruited. The highest profile hire Meridian had made in 5 years. Oh no. Marcus, Jamal said, his voice carefully neutral, what's the situation? Marcus looked like a man watching his career dissolve in real time. Sir, Ms. Harrington reported an unauthorized person in executive parking with possible fraudulent credentials. I detained the individual pending verification. He did exactly what I asked him to do, Linda interjected quickly. This woman refused to leave, claimed to have executive authorization with an obviously fake ID, and became argumentative when confronted. Jamal turned to Alicia. Ma'am, may I see your credentials? They're in my pocket, Alicia said quietly. Officer Chen has them. Marcus handed over the driver's license and access card with hands that trembled slightly. Jamal examined them, then looked up at the woman before him. Alicia Grant. VP of Innovation. Official start date, Monday. Weekend building access, authorized. Ms. Grant, Jamal said, his voice shifting to profoundly apologetic, I am so sorry. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. He shot Marcus a look that promised a very long conversation later. Remove the restraints immediately. Wait, Linda said, but her voice had lost its certainty. What do you mean, Ms. Grant? Marcus unlocked the handcuffs with fumbling fingers. Alicia rubbed her wrists calmly, then held out her hand for her credentials. Jamal returned them personally, his expression pained. Ms. Grant is our new Vice President of Innovation, Jamal said, turning to Linda with barely concealed fury. She starts officially on Monday. CEO Keating authorized weekend building access for familiarization purposes. He paused. She has every right to be here. In fact, she has more right to be here than most. The color drained from Linda's face, then returned in a rush of red. There must be. I mean, she didn't, she stopped, regrouped, forced a smile that looked like it hurt. Well, this is embarrassing. I didn't realize, you should have said something. I showed you my credentials, Alicia said quietly. You dismissed them as fake. I thought. I mean, you're dressed so casually, and that car. Linda gestured at the Oldsmobile, then seemed to realize how that sounded. What I mean is, there's been a simple misunderstanding. No harm done, right? We can laugh about this on Monday. Alicia opened her journal, flipped back several pages, and read in a clear voice, direct quote, 9:08 a.m., I know everyone who belongs on this level. And honey, you are not one of them. She looked up. Should I continue? Linda's smile froze. I think we're all a bit on edge. Perhaps we should. I apologize profusely for this incident, Ms. Grant, Jamal interrupted. I'd like to escort you anywhere you need to go, And I'll need to file a full report on this situation. That won't be necessary, Linda said quickly. Really, it's just a misunderstanding. I'm sure Ms. Grant understands. We're all on the same team here. Alicia closed her journal slowly. Are we? The question hung in the air like smoke. Linda laughed nervously. Of course. I'm sure we'll work wonderfully together. In fact, I'm really looking forward to Monday. It'll be great to have fresh perspectives in innovation. She was backing toward her Mercedes now, her confidence crumbling with each step. I should get going. Errands to run. Welcome to Meridian, Ms. Grant. I'm sure you'll love it here. She was in her car and pulling out of the garage before anyone could respond, the Mercedes's engine purring away into the morning. Jamal turned to Alicia, his expression grim. Ms. Grant, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Alicia met his eyes. Go ahead. Has this happened before? He asked. Alicia's slight smile held no humor. What do you think? Jamal's jaw tightened. I think you should come with me to my office. We need to talk. And Marcus, he turned to the younger officer, who looked like he wanted to sink through the concrete, you and I will be having a very long conversation later. As Alicia followed Jamal toward the security office, she glanced back once at the turquoise Oldsmobile sitting peacefully in space C-12. Her father's car. The car that didn't belong, according to Linda Harrington. In 48 hours, Alicia thought, that woman is going to learn exactly what belonging actually means. Jamal's office was a small, windowless room tucked behind the main security station, its walls covered with monitor feeds showing every corner of Meridian's 37 floors. He poured 2 cups of coffee from a pot that looked like it had been brewing since dawn, handed one to Alicia, and sat down heavily in his chair. I need to ask you something, Alicia said before he could speak, and I need you to answer honestly. She echoed his earlier words deliberately. Has this happened before? Jamal's silence was answer enough. He stared at his coffee, jaw working as if physically chewing on the decision of whether to speak. Finally, he let out a long breath. Not exactly like this, he said carefully. But, yes. Incidents. Situations that got smoothed over. Define smoothed over. Jamal met her eyes. Ms. Grant, I've been here 15 years. I've seen a lot. And what I've learned is that some people at Meridian have protection. Informal networks. Friends in high places who make problems disappear. Alicia opened her journal. Tell me. Jamal hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. 2 years ago, we had a new analyst start in the finance division. Young black man, Georgetown MBA, brilliant credentials. Second week on the job, he's working late on a presentation. Linda Harrington sees him in the executive lounge after hours, assumes he's maintenance, tells him the coffee machine is broken and demands he fix it. When he explains he's an analyst, she accuses him of lying and calls security. What happened? He filed a complaint. HR investigated. Linda claimed it was an honest mistake. The analyst was encouraged to consider the optics of pushing the issue. He left Meridian 3 months later. Jamal paused. Last I heard, he's at Goldman Sachs, doing very well. Alicia wrote steadily. Go on. 6 months ago, a Latina VP candidate came for a final interview. She parked in visitor parking, walked into the building. Linda saw her in the lobby, assumed she was looking for the janitorial service office, gave her directions to the basement. The candidate mentioned it in her interview, said she found it concerning. She didn't take the job. Linda again. Not always Linda, Jamal admitted. But she's the most consistent. There've been others. Security guards who've been pressured to question people who don't look right for certain areas. Complaints about diversity hires not fitting the Meridian culture. Nothing that rises to the level of a lawsuit, but a pattern, Alicia finished. A pattern, Jamal agreed. And here's the thing, Ms. Grant. Linda Harrington is protected. She worked directly with James Morrison, your predecessor as VP of Innovation, for 7 years. They were close. And she's friends with Richard Pemberton, the systems VP. He oversees facilities, security protocols, everything that touches this kind of incident. So complaints disappear. Complaints get recontextualized. Honest mistakes. Cultural misunderstandings. People being too sensitive. Jamal's voice carried years of frustration. I've tried to address it. I've flagged patterns in incident reports. But Pemberton controls what reaches CEO Keating's desk, and he's very good at making sure certain information stays buried. Alicia was quiet for a moment, writing. What happened with Morrison? My predecessor. Jamal's expression darkened. Morrison was old school. Brilliant technologist, but he ran innovation like a private club. Hired people who fit, which meant people who looked and thought like him. Linda was his right hand in marketing integration. When he retired last year, rumor was she expected to move into an innovation role herself. And instead, they hired me. They hired you, Jamal confirmed. First woman VP of Innovation. First black VP of Innovation. Brought in from outside instead of promoting from within. He paused. Linda found out about your hire 3 weeks ago. She was not pleased. Alicia closed her journal. I need the security footage from this morning. All of it. Parking garage cameras, elevator cameras, anything that captured what happened. You'll have it, Jamal said immediately. But Ms. Grant, you should know, Pemberton will try to bury this. He'll call it an unfortunate misunderstanding, pressure you to let it go for the sake of team cohesion. Will he? Something in Alicia's tone made Jamal look up sharply. She was smiling, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who'd been preparing for this fight her entire career. Mr. Rivers, I have a question for you. When you filed those incident reports, the ones that flagged patterns of bias, what happened to them? They went to Pemberton. He's my direct supervisor. So they're in the system somewhere. Documented. Theoretically, yes, but. And the complaints from the analyst, the interview candidate, the others you mentioned. Those went through formal HR channels. Yes, but they were closed without action. Closed, Alicia repeated. But documented. Time-stamped. Recorded in the system. Jamal's eyes widened as he understood. You're going to build a case. Mr. Rivers, I've spent the last decade in fintech, an industry where being underestimated was a daily occurrence. I learned very early that documentation is power. Evidence is armor. And patterns, she tapped her journal, patterns are everything. She stood, extending her hand. Thank you for your honesty. And for your integrity. Both are rarer than they should be. Jamal shook her hand. What are you going to do? Alicia's smile widened slightly. I'm going to do exactly what Meridian hired me to do. Innovate. She left the security office with her journal full of names, dates, and detailed observations. Behind her, Jamal Rivers sat back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. For the first time in 15 years, he thought, someone might actually do something about the toxicity he'd documented for so long. Linda Harrington had made a critical error this morning. She'd assumed the woman in jeans with the old car couldn't fight back. In 48 hours, she would learn just how wrong she'd been. Sunday morning arrived with the kind of gray, introspective light that made research feel sacred. Alicia sat in her home office surrounded by 3 monitors, 2 legal pads, her father's leather journal, and a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. The security footage Jamal had sent played on a loop on her left screen. On the center monitor, Linda Harrington's personnel file lay open, its contents more revealing than Linda would ever want. 8 years at Meridian Financial Group. Started in junior marketing, climbed steadily through account management, secured the senior marketing executive position 4 years ago. Performance reviews consistently, exceeds expectations. Not a single disciplinary action on record. To any casual observer, Linda Harrington looked like a model employee. But Alicia had learned long ago to read between the lines. She scrolled to the internal feedback section, the notes managers left that never made it into official reviews. There, buried in bland corporate language, the pattern emerged. Linda shows strong initiative but would benefit from developing more collaborative relationships with diverse stakeholders. Translation: she doesn't work well with people who don't look like her. Feedback suggests Linda's communication style may not resonate equally across all team members. Translation: complaints about how she speaks to certain employees. Recommend additional cultural competency training to support Linda's continued growth. Translation: someone reported her, and this was the slap-on-the-wrist response. Alicia cross-referenced the dates of these developmental opportunities with the formal complaints Jamal had mentioned. They aligned perfectly. Every time someone reported Linda, HR responded with a training requirement that was never enforced and a note in her file that was never acted upon. 3 formal complaints over 5 years. All closed with the same notation: matter resolved through informal mediation. No disciplinary action required. Complainant satisfied with outcome. Alicia picked up her phone and called the first complainant, whose contact information Jamal had discreetly provided. Deshaun Mitchell answered on the 3rd ring. "Mr. Mitchell, my name is Alicia Grant. I'm the new VP of Innovation at Meridian Financial Group, and I'm investigating an incident involving Linda Harrington. I understand you filed a complaint against her 2 years ago." There was a long pause. "Who gave you my information?" "Someone who believes your complaint deserved better than it received." "I'm not calling to revive old wounds, Mr. Mitchell. I'm calling because I need to understand whether what happened to me yesterday was isolated or part of something bigger." Another pause. "What happened to you?" Alicia told him, keeping her voice clinical, factual. When she finished, Deshaun let out a bitter laugh. "Coffee machine. She told me to fix the coffee machine. I was wearing a suit. I had my badge visible. But she saw a black man after hours and assumed I was maintenance." His voice carried old anger. "When I filed the complaint, HR told me Linda had misread the situation. They suggested I was being overly sensitive about an honest mistake. Then they implied that pushing the issue might affect my reputation as a team player." "Did they use those exact words? Team player?" "Yeah. Multiple times. The message was clear: drop it or face consequences." Alicia wrote it all down. "Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. This helps. Ms. Grant. Be careful. Linda has friends in high places. People who've protected her for years." "I'm aware," Alicia said. "Thank you." She made 2 more calls. The stories were variations on a theme: assumptions based on appearance, dismissal of credentials, threats when challenged. Each complaint had been resolved through a process designed to protect the institution, not the person harmed. By noon, Alicia had documented 9 separate incidents involving Linda Harrington over 5 years. 9 people who'd been questioned, dismissed, or humiliated based on Linda's assumptions about who belonged where. And behind each incident, the same protective structure: Richard Pemberton minimizing concerns, HR closing complaints without action, a system that prioritized comfort over accountability. At 2 p.m., Alicia's phone rang. The caller ID showed Dr. Simone Baptiste, Chief Diversity Officer. "Ms. Grant, we haven't officially met yet, but I've been briefed on yesterday's incident. I'd like to speak with you, if you're willing. Off the record." They met at a coffee shop 3 blocks from Meridian headquarters. Dr. Baptiste was a woman in her 50s with silver locks and eyes that had seen too much institutional failure. She ordered chamomile tea and got straight to the point. "I've been trying to address the culture problems at Meridian for 3 years," she said. "Every initiative I propose gets blocked. Every complaint I escalate gets contextualized into nothing. And the person blocking me, every single time, is Richard Pemberton. Why? Because addressing systemic bias would require acknowledging that Meridian has systemic bias. And that acknowledgement would threaten people who've built careers on the old system. Pemberton is one of those people. So is your predecessor, Morrison. They protect each other, and they protect anyone who operates like they do. Like Linda Harrington." Dr. Baptiste nodded. "Linda is a symptom, Ms. Grant. The disease is deeper. But she's a visible symptom, and what happened to you yesterday is so egregious that it might finally create an opening. What do you need from me? Documentation. Patterns. Evidence that what happened wasn't an isolated incident but part of a broader failure. Give me that, and I can take it to CEO Keating in a way that can't be buried." Alicia slid a folder across the table. 9 incidents. 5 years. All documented. All resolved without action. Dr. Baptiste opened the folder, her expression growing grimmer with each page. "This is damning. That's the point." They spent the next hour strategizing. Dr. Baptiste explained the informal power structures, the alliances, the ways information got filtered before reaching Patricia Keating. Alicia showed her the security footage, the journal entries, the personnel files. By the time they finished, they had something more than documentation. They had a case. Monday morning, Dr. Baptiste said, "Linda will walk into that executive meeting expecting business as usual. She'll have spent the weekend convincing herself that yesterday was no big deal, that it'll blow over." "It won't," Alicia said. "No," Dr. Baptiste agreed. "It won't. Because you're not going to let it." Alicia drove home in the turquoise Oldsmobile as the sun set over the city, her father's car humming with the steady reliability of something built to last. Tomorrow, she would walk into Meridian Financial Group for her first official day. Linda Harrington had no idea what was coming. Neither, Alicia suspected, did Richard Pemberton. But they were about to learn. The turquoise Oldsmobile pulled into space C-12 at 8:47 a.m. on Monday morning, precisely 13 minutes before the executive leadership meeting. Alicia sat in her father's car for a moment, feeling the weight of 4 decades of history beneath her hands on the steering wheel. She could almost hear his voice, "Show them who you are, baby girl. Not who they think you should be." She wore a charcoal suit tailored to perfection, her natural hair styled in elegant twists, her father's journal in her leather portfolio alongside her tablet and the folder Dr. Baptiste had helped her prepare. The overnight rain had washed the Oldsmobile's oxidized paint, making the turquoise somehow more vibrant against the sea of German luxury surrounding it. Let them look, Alicia thought. Let them wonder. The executive floor hummed with the particular energy of Monday morning, assistants juggling coffee orders, leaders reviewing presentations, the performance of corporate hierarchy on full display. Alicia checked in with Patricia Keating's executive assistant, received her official welcome packet, and made her way to the conference room where her future would begin. The room was already half full. She recognized faces from the leadership profiles she'd studied: CFO Michael Torres, Operations VP Jennifer Park, Legal Counsel David Marsh. They greeted her warmly, curiosity evident in their eyes. The new VP of Innovation, personally recruited by Keating, the first external hire for executive leadership in 5 years. Everyone wanted to know who she was. At 8:58 a.m., Linda Harrington walked in. She looked immaculate, navy suit, pearl earrings, hair styled to corporate perfection. Her confidence had been fully restored over the weekend, clearly convinced that Saturday's misunderstanding was behind her. She carried a tablet and a branded Meridian portfolio, chatting easily with Jennifer Park about a marketing campaign. Then she saw Alicia sitting 3 seats from the head of the table. Linda's step faltered for just a fraction of a second. Then her professional mask slid into place, and she approached with an extended hand and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Ms. Grant. So wonderful to see you. I wanted to apologize again for Saturday's confusion. Crazy how those things happen, right?" Her laugh was forced. "I'm Linda Harrington, Senior Marketing Executive. I'm sure we'll be working together on some exciting campaigns." Alicia shook her hand briefly. "I'm sure." Linda took a seat at the far end of the table, her smile fixed, her eyes calculating. She was already planning, Alicia could tell. Already spinning the narrative in her mind, preparing to minimize, to charm, to make Saturday disappear into corporate memory. At exactly 9 a.m., Patricia Keating entered the room. CEO Keating was a woman in her early 60s who'd built Meridian from a regional firm into a national powerhouse through a combination of strategic brilliance and uncompromising standards. She commanded attention without demanding it, her presence filling the room like a change in air pressure. "Good morning, everyone. Let's begin." She took her seat at the head of the table. "We have an important addition to our leadership team today, and I'd like to make the introduction personally." She gestured to Alicia. "Many of you have heard about our new Vice President of Innovation. It's my pleasure to officially introduce Alicia Grant, who comes to us with an extraordinary track record in fintech innovation. Alicia will be leading our digital transformation initiatives and, critically, our innovation culture development." Heads nodded around the table. Polite applause. Linda's smile remained frozen. "Alicia's scope includes oversight of innovation partnerships across all divisions," Keating continued, "including marketing's innovation integration programs." Linda's smile finally cracked. Just slightly. Just enough for Alicia to see the moment Linda realized that the woman from the parking garage wasn't just an executive. She was Linda's boss's boss, with direct authority over the programs Linda had spent years building. "I'll let Alicia say a few words," Keating said, sitting back. Alicia stood, her father's training in her spine: stand tall, speak clearly, never apologize for taking up space. "Thank you, Patricia. I'm honored to join Meridian and excited about the work ahead. Innovation isn't just about technology. It's about culture. It's about creating environments where the best ideas win, regardless of where they come from or who delivers them." She paused, letting her words settle. "It's about ensuring that everyone who belongs here knows they belong." Linda's face had gone pale. "I'm looking forward to working with each of you," Alicia continued. "I believe in transparency, accountability, and building systems that work for everyone, not just those who've always had access." She smiled. "Starting today, we're going to innovate not just what we do, but how we do it. Who's ready?" The applause was more enthusiastic this time. Several executives nodded approvingly. Jennifer Park looked intrigued. Michael Torres leaned forward with interest. And at the far end of the table, Linda Harrington sat frozen, finally understanding what Saturday had cost her. The meeting continued for another hour. Budget discussions, strategic initiatives, quarterly reviews. Alicia participated thoughtfully, demonstrating the expertise that had made her worth recruiting. Linda remained silent, her earlier confidence completely evaporated. As the meeting concluded and people gathered their materials, Patricia Keating's voice cut through the room's chatter. "Alicia, Linda, could you both stay for a moment?" The room emptied. Linda remained in her seat, rigid. Alicia closed her portfolio calmly. Keating looked between them, her expression unreadable. "I received an incident report this morning from our head of security regarding an event in the executive parking garage on Saturday. Linda, would you like to explain what happened?" Linda's professional mask was cracking in real time. "Patricia, it was a simple misunderstanding. I didn't realize Ms. Grant was." "You didn't realize she was an executive," Keating finished. "Why not?" She was dressed casually, and her vehicle. I mean, I've never seen her before, so I assumed." "You assumed based on appearance," Keating said quietly. And when she showed you her credentials? Linda's silence was damning. Keating turned to Alicia. Ms. Grant, I owe you an apology. This is not how Meridian welcomes new leaders. It's not how we treat anyone. With respect, Patricia, this isn't about me, Alicia said. She opened her portfolio and slid the folder across the table. It's about a pattern. Keating opened the folder. Linda's face drained of all color. 9 incidents over 5 years, Alicia said calmly. All involving employees of color being questioned about their right to be in certain spaces. All involving assumptions based on appearance. All closed without meaningful action. She paused. Saturday wasn't an isolated event. It was the latest in a well-established pattern that this institution has chosen not to address. Keating read in silence, her expression growing darker with each page. When she finally looked up, her gaze fixed on Linda with surgical precision. Linda, you're suspended pending a formal investigation. You'll receive communication from HR this afternoon regarding next steps. Keating's voice carried the weight of finality. Leave your badge and access card with my assistant on your way out. Linda stood on trembling legs. Patricia, please, I've given 8 years to this company. And in those 8 years, you've created a hostile environment for employees who didn't fit your narrow definition of belonging. That ends today. Keating's expression softened slightly. This investigation will be fair and thorough. But the pattern Ms. Grant has documented requires immediate action. Linda walked out without another word, her confidence shattered, her future uncertain. When the door closed, Keating looked at Alicia with something approaching respect. You haven't even officially started, and you're already changing this place. I haven't finished, Alicia said quietly. Keating's eyebrows rose. There's more. There's always more, Alicia replied. Linda is a symptom. The question is whether Meridian wants to treat symptoms or cure the disease. Keating leaned back, studying the woman before her. Show me. The private meeting with Patricia Keating lasted 3 hours. Alicia presented everything, the security footage that showed not just Saturday's incident but patterns in how different employees were treated in the garage, the personnel files documenting complaints that disappeared into administrative limbo, the interviews with former employees who'd left rather than fight a system designed to exhaust them. But the most damning evidence was what Dr. Simone Baptiste provided, a comprehensive report on every diversity initiative blocked over the past 3 years, complete with emails, budget requests denied without explanation, and a clear pattern of obstruction from Systems VP Richard Pemberton. He's been gatekeeping equity work, Baptiste explained, joining the meeting at Alicia's request. Every time we try to implement real change, bias training with teeth, anonymous reporting systems, demographic audits of promotion patterns, Pemberton finds reasons why it's not the right time or not aligned with operational priorities. Keating's jaw tightened as she read through the evidence. Why didn't you bring this to me directly? I tried, Baptiste said quietly. Twice. Both times, Pemberton scheduled conflicting priorities that prevented our meetings. When I sent written reports, they were lost before reaching your office. He controls information flow in ways that are difficult to circumvent. Until now, Alicia added. She pulled up a final document on her tablet. I'd like to propose something. Not as punishment, but as innovation. She presented what she called the Grant Protocols, a comprehensive framework for cultural accountability. Mandatory bias training conducted by external experts, not internal HR. Anonymous reporting systems that bypass traditional management chains. Regular equity audits examining hiring, promotion, and retention patterns across all demographics. Most critically, the elimination of informal protection networks through transparent investigation processes. But here's the innovation part, Alicia continued. We don't just implement rules. We create incentives. Executive bonuses tied to equity metrics. Public reporting on diversity progress. Leadership development programs specifically for employees from underrepresented backgrounds. We make equity a business priority, not an HR afterthought. Keating was silent for a long moment, studying the proposal. Then she looked up. This is exactly why I hired you. Not just to innovate our technology, but to innovate our thinking. She closed the folder. I'm approving all of it. Dr. Baptiste, you'll lead implementation, reporting directly to me, bypassing Pemberton entirely. In fact, she paused, making a decision. Pemberton will be given a choice: lead the reform effort himself and prove his commitment to change, or take early retirement with full benefits. And Linda? Alicia asked. The investigation will determine her future. But even if she remains with Meridian in some capacity, she'll never hold supervisory authority again. Keating stood, extending her hand. Welcome to Meridian, Ms. Grant. Officially. Alicia shook her hand. Thank you for being willing to listen. Thank you for being willing to speak. Too many people see problems and stay silent. Keating smiled slightly. Though I have to ask, the Oldsmobile. Is that deliberate? My father drove that car for 34 years, Alicia said. He drove it to my spelling bees and my graduation and my first business pitch. When he died, he left it to me with instructions never to be ashamed of where I came from. She smiled. So yes, it's deliberate. It's a reminder. Of what? That merit isn't measured in luxury vehicles. That innovation comes from unexpected places. That the person you dismiss today might be the person who changes your entire organization tomorrow. Alicia paused. And that sometimes the most powerful statement is simply refusing to perform the role people expect you to play. Keating laughed, a genuine, delighted sound. I think you're going to do very well here, Ms. Grant. 3 months later. The turquoise Oldsmobile pulled into space C-12, its odometer now reading 290,847 miles. The parking garage looked different these days, not in its physical structure, but in its energy. Security officers greeted everyone by name, regardless of their vehicle or attire. The assumptions that had once governed who belonged where had been systematically dismantled. Linda Harrington had been reassigned to a non-supervisory role in external communications after a month-long investigation confirmed the pattern Alicia had documented. Richard Pemberton had chosen early retirement rather than lead the reform efforts. 3 new executives had been hired to replace departing leadership, all from underrepresented backgrounds, all selected through a revised process that prioritized equity alongside excellence. The Grant protocols had become Meridian's signature initiative, generating positive press and attracting top talent who'd previously dismissed the company as culturally stagnant. Dr. Baptiste's department had tripled in size and budget. Most importantly, anonymous reporting showed that employees felt safer, more valued, more heard. Alicia walked into the building carrying her father's leather journal, now filled with notes on successful interventions rather than documented abuses. In her office, she kept a photo of the Oldsmobile on her desk, not as nostalgia, but as a mission statement. Her father had been right. The car didn't need to be new or impressive. It just needed to keep going, mile after mile, carrying its passengers towards something better. As Alicia settled into her morning routine, an email arrived from Marcus Chen, the security officer who detained her that Saturday morning. After mandatory retraining and mentorship from Jamal Rivers, he'd become an advocate for the new protocols, using his experience as a cautionary tale in bias training sessions. Ms. Grant, the email read. I wanted to update you on our progress. This month, we documented 0 incidents of employees being questioned about their presence in executive spaces. 0. That's not an accident. That's the culture you're building. Thank you for giving us all a chance to be better. Alicia smiled, closed the email, and looked out her office window. 37 floors below, in the executive parking garage, a faded turquoise Oldsmobile sat among luxury vehicles, different but no longer out of place. It belonged there. Just like she did. Just like everyone who had the talent, the drive, and the courage to show up as themselves, refusing to be diminished by others' limited expectations. The car was just a car, in the end, steel and rubber and decades of accumulated miles. But what it represented had changed Meridian Financial Group forever. Some innovations, Alicia thought, don't require cutting-edge technology. Sometimes the most radical innovation is simply insisting that everyone belongs, and then building systems that make that belonging real. She turned back to her computer, ready for the work ahead. Outside her window, the city hummed with Monday morning energy. And in the parking garage below, her father's Oldsmobile waited patiently, ready for however many miles remained in its journey. The odometer would keep climbing. The engine would keep running. And Alicia Grant would keep driving, mile by mile, toward a future where belonging wasn't determined by appearance, and merit wasn't measured by the car you drove. Some legacies, she'd learned, were worth preserving. And some fights were worth having, even when, especially when, they made people uncomfortable. Because comfort, in the end, was the enemy of change. And change was exactly what Meridian had needed. What her father's Oldsmobile had delivered. What Alicia Grant would continue to drive forward, for however many miles lay ahead.